The champagne glass slipped from Marcus Sterling's hand and shattered against the marble floor of the grand ballroom as I stood before 300 of New York's most influential business leaders and calmly announced that I owned 68% of Sterling Industries, the company he believed he controlled. 30 minutes earlier, at our 15th Fedon anniversary celebration, he had called me a worthless housewife who contributed nothing to our success while his board of directors and Manhattan's elite society watched in stunned silence. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The crystal chandelier above the grand ballroom at the Plaza Hotel cast brilliant light across the faces of 300 guests who had gathered to celebrate what they believed was the perfect marriage of Manhattan's golden couple. Marcus Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Industries, stood at the microphone delivering what was supposed to be a heartfelt tribute to our 15-year marriage and shared journey to the pinnacle of New York's business elite. Instead, his words were systematically destroying the carefully constructed facade that had hidden the truth about our relationship for over a decade. "My beautiful wife, Catherine, has been the perfect complement to my success," Marcus said, his voice carrying the practiced confidence that had made him a legend in commercial real estate development. "While I've been building Sterling Industries into a billion-dollar empire, she's been maintaining our home and supporting my vision with the dedication that only a truly devoted wife can provide." The audience of real estate moguls, investment bankers, and society figures nodded appreciatively, many of them holding champagne flutes that cost more than most people earned in a week. They saw exactly what Marcus wanted them to see: the successful entrepreneur and his supportive wife who had sacrificed her own ambitions to facilitate his extraordinary achievement. What none of them understood was that the woman in the elegant black Valentino gown standing beside the stage was not the devoted housewife they believed her to be. For the past 8 years, I had been systematically acquiring control of Sterling Industries through a complex network of shell companies, strategic partnerships, and carefully orchestrated financial maneuvers that had escaped the attention of Marcus, his board of directors, and every financial analyst who covered the company. "Catherine has never bothered herself with the complexities of business," Marcus continued, his tone becoming more condescending with each word. "She's been content to enjoy the lifestyle that my hard work has provided, never questioning the decisions that have made our success possible or contributing anything meaningful to the empire we've built together." The guests laughed politely at what they interpreted as affectionate teasing between a successful husband and his charming wife. Margaret Whitmore, the wife of Goldman Sachs's managing director, smiled knowingly from her front row table. Senator Harrison's wife nodded with the satisfaction of someone who understood the traditional roles that made power couples successful. Even my own mother, seated at the family table, beamed with pride at what she considered public acknowledgement of my perfect fulfillment of wifely duty. But I felt something entirely different as I listened to Marcus systematically dismiss and diminish everything I had accomplished during 15 years of marriage. The rage that had been building for months finally crystallized into absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. The man who had spent our entire marriage taking credit for achievements that were actually mine was about to learn exactly how much his worthless wife had contributed to the empire he claimed to have built alone. Before we continue with this extraordinary story of transformation and vindication, I want you to understand something crucial about the power of strategic patience and hidden preparation. Sometimes the most profound revenge is not explosive confrontation, but the quiet, systematic accumulation of power that renders confrontation unnecessary. The woman who allows herself to be underestimated while methodically gaining control of the very foundations of her opponent's success possesses advantages that aggressive tactics could never provide. Your current circumstances, however challenging or dismissive others may be toward your capabilities, can become the foundation for achievements that exceed anything those critics have accomplished. The key is maintaining focus on long-term strategic objectives while allowing others to maintain their illusions about your limitations until the moment when truth can no longer be denied or dismissed. Of course, Catherine has never had to worry about the pressures of real responsibility, Marcus said, his voice taking on the edge that I recognized from countless private arguments where he had questioned my intelligence, my contributions, and my understanding of the business world that had become the center of our lives. She's been free to pursue her little hobbies and social activities while I've carried the burden of building something meaningful and substantial. The audience was beginning to sense the shift in tone, though they interpreted it as the mild frustration of a successful man whose wife perhaps did not fully appreciate the magnitude of his achievement. They had no way of understanding that they were witnessing the systematic humiliation of someone who had actually been responsible for many of the strategic decisions that had made Sterling Industries successful. What Marcus and his audience did not know was that the devoted wife they pitied had earned her MBA from Harvard Business School before we married, had worked as a senior analyst at McKinsey for 3 years before our wedding, and had spent the last 8 years using that expertise to identify and exploit every weakness in Sterling Industries' corporate structure while appearing to be nothing more than a supportive spouse attending charity functions and society events. The transformation from Harvard MBA to invisible housewife had not been accidental or voluntary. During our early marriage, Marcus had systematically discouraged my professional ambitions through a combination of emotional manipulation, social pressure, and financial control that had gradually convinced me that my value lay in supporting his career rather than pursuing my own achievement. Every attempt I made to suggest business strategies or question his decisions was dismissed as the naive observations of someone who did not understand the complexities of real-world commerce. For 7 years I had accepted this diminished role, convincing myself that a successful marriage required sacrifice, and that my contributions to Marcus's achievements were meaningful even if they went unrecognized. I organized the social events that allowed him to network with potential clients and investors. I managed the household operations that freed him to focus on business development. I provided the emotional support and intellectual companionship that enabled him to take the risks that built Sterling Industries into a major player in Manhattan commercial real estate. However, the transformation from accepting wife to strategic adversary had begun during our 8th year of marriage, when I discovered that Marcus had been conducting an affair with his executive assistant while publicly praising my devotion and sacrifice. The betrayal was profound, but what devastated me more than his infidelity was realizing that he genuinely believed I was too naive and dependent to ever discover his deception or take meaningful action in response. That discovery had triggered a fundamental shift in how I viewed our marriage and my own capabilities. Instead of confronting Marcus directly about his affair, which would have resulted in divorce proceedings that favored his financial position and social connections, I began developing a long-term strategy that would give me control over the very foundations of his success. The plan that emerged from months of careful analysis was both elegant and devastating in its simplicity. Rather than challenging Marcus for control of Sterling Industries through direct confrontation, I would acquire ownership of the company through methods that exploited his arrogance and his systematic underestimation of my analytical capability. The first phase of this strategy involved establishing my own investment vehicle through a series of shell companies that could not be traced back to me or connected to our joint financial holding. Using funds from my inheritance, which Marcus had always dismissed as insignificant compared to the wealth generated by his business activities, I created Sterling Capital Management, an investment firm that specialized in acquiring undervalued real estate development companies. The second phase required developing comprehensive intelligence about Sterling Industries' financial structure, strategic weaknesses, and growth opportunity. My position as Marcus's wife provided unprecedented access to confidential information about business strategies, financial performance, and planned acquisitions that external investors could never obtain. Board meetings were held in our home office, where I served refreshments while absorbing discussions about market opportunities and competitive challenges. Strategic planning sessions took place during weekend retreats that I organized, providing me with detailed understanding of the company's long-term objectives and operational vulnerability. The third phase involved identifying the specific weaknesses in Sterling Industries that could be exploited to gain ownership control without triggering defensive responses from Marcus or his management team. My analysis revealed that the company's rapid growth had been financed through a complex structure of debt obligations and partnership agreements that created opportunities for strategic investors who understood the intricate relationships between different business units and financial obligations. Most significantly, I discovered that Sterling Industries' most valuable assets, including their prime Manhattan office buildings and development projects, were held through subsidiary companies that could be acquired independently of the parent corporation. Marcus had structured these holdings to optimize tax benefits and liability protection, but this complex ownership structure also created opportunities for investors who could identify and purchase the subsidiaries that controlled the most valuable property. The implementation of my acquisition strategy required extraordinary patience and precision timing that tested every aspect of my business education and analytical capability. Over 4 years, Sterling Capital Management systematically acquired controlling interests in 17 subsidiary companies that held Sterling Industries' most valuable real estate asset. Each acquisition was carefully structured to avoid triggering disclosure requirements or attracting attention from Marcus's legal and financial advisors. The beauty of this approach was that Marcus remained completely unaware of my activities, while I gained control of the foundations of his empire. He saw only what he expected to see: a devoted wife who managed household affairs and social obligations, while he focused on the important work of business development. His systematic underestimation of my capabilities provided perfect camouflage for activities that were reshaping the ownership structure of his company. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The financial resources required for these acquisitions came from multiple sources that demonstrated the value of strategic planning and patience. My inheritance, which Marcus had always dismissed as modest family money, had been invested in technology stocks during the early phases of the internet boom, generating returns that provided substantial acquisition capital. The social connections I had maintained from my Harvard and McKinsey days provided access to private investment opportunities that generated additional funding streams. Most importantly, the profits from early acquisitions were reinvested to fund larger transactions that gradually increased my ownership stake in Sterling Industries' underlying assets. By our 13th wedding anniversary, I controlled the majority ownership of the real estate holdings that generated Sterling Industries' primary revenue stream. However, the complex corporate structure meant that neither Marcus nor his financial advisors understood the implications of the ownership changes that had occurred through seemingly unrelated subsidiary acquisitions. The final phase of my strategy involved consolidating control of Sterling Industries itself through a carefully orchestrated series of moves that would force recognition of my ownership position while providing maximum psychological impact on Marcus and his associates. This required coordination between multiple investment vehicles, legal entities, and strategic partners that had been developed over years of patient preparation. The trigger for revealing my position came when Marcus announced his intention to take Sterling Industries public through an initial stock offering that would have diluted my ownership stake and provided him with enormous personal wealth, while maintaining operational control of the company. His plan represented the culmination of 15 years of taking credit for achievements that were actually collaborative efforts, and it would have permanently established him as the sole architect of our shared success. Tonight's anniversary celebration was supposed to be the social launch for the IPO announcement, with Marcus using our marriage as an example of the stable leadership and family values that made Sterling Industries an attractive investment opportunity. The guest list included investment bankers, financial journalists, and potential institutional investors who would determine the success of the public offer. Instead, this celebration was about to become the stage for the most spectacular revelation of hidden ownership and strategic deception in Manhattan business history. The husband who had just finished explaining to 300 influential witnesses how worthless his wife was to their shared success was about to discover that his worthless wife owned the majority of his company. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, stepping forward to the microphone as Marcus concluded his remarks with a toast to our continued partnership. "Thank you all for celebrating this milestone with us tonight. Before we continue, I have a small announcement that I believe will interest many of you, particularly those who have been considering investment opportunities with Sterling Industries." Marcus looked puzzled but continued smiling, assuming that I was about to deliver the kind of gracious remarks that wives typically offered at such celebrations. The audience settled back into their seats, expecting to hear appreciation for their friendship and support over the year. "As of today," I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system that had just broadcast Marcus's dismissal of my contributions, I own 68% of Sterling Industries through a series of strategic acquisitions that have been completed over the past 4 years. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. 300 of New York's most sophisticated business leaders sat frozen as they processed the implications of what they had just heard. The devoted housewife who had been publicly dismissed as worthless had just revealed that she was the majority owner of her husband's billion-dollar company. Marcus's champagne flute slipped from his hand and shattered against the marble floor, the sound echoing through the silent ballroom like the breaking of every assumption that had defined our marriage and his understanding of our power dynamic. The story of how a Harvard MBA became the invisible wife of New York's most arrogant real estate mogul begins with a love story that gradually transformed into a systematic campaign of psychological manipulation and professional diminishment. 15 years before that anniversary revelation, I had been Catherine Michelle Harrison, a rising star at McKinsey with a Harvard MBA and a promising career in strategic consulting that had already attracted offers from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. Marcus Sterling had been a client during my final year at McKinsey, seeking guidance on his ambitious plan to transform a small family real estate business into a major player in Manhattan commercial development. Sterling Properties was generating modest profits from residential developments in Queens, but Marcus possessed vision and determination that impressed even the most sophisticated consultants at our firm. His presentation to our team demonstrated strategic thinking that combined deep market knowledge with innovative financing approaches that could accelerate growth beyond traditional industry standards. What attracted me to Marcus was not just his professional ambition, but his apparent appreciation for intellectual partnership. Unlike other successful men I had encountered who seemed threatened by accomplished women, Marcus actively sought my input on complex strategic decisions and credited my analysis with helping him identify opportunities that his previous advisors had missed. Our professional relationship evolved into personal attraction based on mutual respect and shared commitment to excellence that seemed to promise a future where two ambitious individuals could achieve extraordinary success together. The courtship period reinforced my belief that Marcus valued intelligence and capability in his romantic partners. He introduced me to his business associates as his strategic advisor before revealing that we were dating. He sought my opinion on potential acquisitions and market opportunities, often implementing recommendations that generated substantial profits for Sterling Properties. Most importantly, he expressed enthusiasm for the possibility of building both a marriage and a business empire based on genuine partnership and complementary strengths. The engagement period expanded this collaboration into comprehensive planning for our shared future. Marcus proposed during a weekend retreat where we had been developing a 5-year strategic plan for Sterling Industries, the expanded company that would emerge from our combined resources and expertise. He presented the engagement ring along with detailed projections showing how my McKinsey connections and analytical capabilities would accelerate Sterling Industries' growth trajectory, while my Harvard MBA provided credibility that would attract institutional investors and high-net-worth clients. Our wedding was a celebration of professional partnership as much as romantic commitment. The guest list included executives from major real estate development firms, investment bankers, who specialized in commercial property financing, and political leaders, whose support would be crucial for navigating New York's complex regulatory environment. Marcus introduced me as his intellectual equal and business partner, emphasizing that our marriage represented the foundation for building something extraordinary in Manhattan's competitive real estate market. The first 3 years of our marriage fulfilled these expectations in ways that exceeded our most optimistic projections. My McKinsey training proved invaluable for identifying undervalued properties and structuring complex financing arrangements that allowed Sterling Industries to acquire prime development sites that established competitors could not afford. My Harvard connections provided access to private capital sources that funded expansion at rates that traditional bank lending could never support. Most importantly, my analytical capabilities enabled Marcus to avoid costly mistakes that destroyed other ambitious developers during the economic volatility of the early 2000s. Sterling Industries' revenue growth during this period averaged 47% annually, establishing the company as one of the fastest-growing real estate development firms in Manhattan. Marcus received recognition as Entrepreneur of the Year from the Real Estate Board of New York, but his acceptance speech emphasized that our success resulted from genuine partnership between two individuals whose complementary skills had created something neither could have achieved independently. However, the seeds of our eventual conflict were planted during these early success years, through subtle changes in how Marcus discussed our contributions to Sterling Industries' achievement. Media interviews gradually shifted from emphasizing partnership to highlighting his individual vision and leadership capabilities. Industry recognition increasingly focused on his personal accomplishments, rather than our collaborative approach to strategic planning and business development. Most significantly, Marcus began describing my role in terms of support and assistance, rather than intellectual partnership and shared decision-making authority. The transformation from equal partner to supporting spouse accelerated after our 4th anniversary, when Sterling Industries achieved sufficient scale to attract attention from major institutional investors and potential acquisition targets. Marcus hired external public relations consultants, advised that his personal brand as a visionary entrepreneur would be strengthened by emphasizing traditional family values and a wife who provided stability and support rather than competing for recognition as a business leader in her own right. This strategic repositioning required gradual elimination of my visible role in Sterling Industries operations and decision-making processes. Board meetings were moved from our home office to corporate headquarters, where my presence would be inappropriate. Strategic planning sessions were scheduled during times when social obligations prevented my participation. Most importantly, Marcus began describing my contributions in diminished terms that emphasized emotional support and household management, rather than analytical capabilities and strategic insight. The psychological impact of this systematic marginalization was profound and disorienting in ways that my Harvard education and McKinsey training had never prepared me to handle. For 6 years I had been building both a marriage and a business based on intellectual equality and shared accomplishment. The gradual erosion of recognition and responsibility created persistent uncertainty about my actual value and capabilities that undermined confidence in areas where I had previously felt competent and accomplished. Marcus reinforced this diminishment through consistent messaging that my business insights, while occasionally useful, lacked the practical understanding necessary for serious decision-making in Manhattan's competitive real estate environment. My suggestions regarding potential acquisitions were politely acknowledged but rarely implemented, with explanations that emphasized market complexities that consulting experience could not adequately address. My analysis of financing opportunities was appreciated but ultimately dismissed in favor of approaches that Marcus claimed required operational expertise that academic training could not provide. The social pressure to accept this reduced role was overwhelming and came from directions that made resistance seem unrealistic and potentially destructive to our marriage. Marcus's business associates reinforced the message that successful wives supported their husbands' careers rather than pursuing competing professional identity. The society women who comprised my primary social circle in Manhattan's elite communities emphasized that intelligent women demonstrated their sophistication by facilitating their husbands' achievements, rather than seeking independent recognition. Most challenging was pressure from my own family, who viewed my marriage to Marcus as validation of the educational investments they had made in my Harvard MBA and McKinsey career. My parents, both successful professionals who had made significant sacrifices to fund my education, expressed pride in my role as the wife of one of New York's most promising entrepreneurs. They interpreted any dissatisfaction with my diminished responsibilities as ingratitude for the privileged lifestyle that Marcus's success had provided. The tipping point that would eventually trigger my strategic response occurred during our 8th anniversary dinner when Marcus made a comment that revealed his true assessment of my contributions to our shared success. During a conversation about potential succession planning for Sterling Industries, he mentioned that any future business partner would need to possess the operational experience and market credibility that academic credentials could not provide. When I pointed out that my analysis had been instrumental in identifying several of Sterling Industries' most profitable acquisitions, Marcus responded with the condescending patience that had become characteristic of our discussions about business matters. He explained that while my suggestions had occasionally been helpful,
the real work of building Sterling Industries required understanding of market dynamics and regulatory complexities that consulting experience simply could not develop. The casual dismissal of 8 years of intellectual contribution was devastating, but what transformed devastation into determination was recognizing that Marcus genuinely believed his own revised narrative about our partnership. He had convinced himself that his success resulted from individual brilliance and determination, rather than collaborative effort, that had integrated my analytical capabilities with his operational expertise and market knowledge. That realization triggered a fundamental shift in how I viewed our marriage and my own future possibility. Instead of continuing to seek recognition for contributions that Marcus would never acknowledge, I began developing a strategy that would demonstrate the actual value of the capabilities he had systematically dismissed and underestimated. The plan that emerged from months of careful analysis was both elegant and devastating in its simplicity. Rather than confronting Marcus directly about his revisionist history, or demanding greater recognition for my ongoing contribution, I would acquire control of Sterling Industries through methods that exploited his arrogance and his systematic underestimation of my analytical and strategic capability. The first step involved establishing independent financial resources that could fund acquisition activities without triggering Marcus's attention or concern. My inheritance from my grandmother, which had been invested conservatively in bonds and blue-chip stocks, was redirected toward high-growth technology investments that generated returns significantly exceeding traditional portfolio performance. The profits from these investments provided seed capital for more aggressive strategies that would eventually fund major acquisitions. The second step required developing comprehensive intelligence about Sterling Industries' financial structure, operational vulnerabilities, and strategic opportunities that could be exploited by an informed investor with access to privileged information. My continued presence at social events and family gatherings provided ongoing exposure to confidential discussions about business strategies, market challenges, and planned acquisitions that external analysts could never access. The third step involved creating the legal and financial infrastructure necessary to acquire Sterling Industries assets without revealing my identity or triggering defensive responses from Marcus or his management team. This required establishing shell companies, investment vehicles, and strategic partnerships that could execute complex transactions while maintaining complete operational secrecy. The implementation of this strategy would require extraordinary patience, precision timing, and systematic execution that would test every aspect of my business education and analytical capability. However, the alternative was accepting permanent relegation to a supporting role in a success story that I had helped create but would never receive credit for building. The woman who had once been offered partnerships at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley was about to demonstrate that systematic underestimation could become the foundation for the most sophisticated corporate acquisition in Manhattan real estate history. Marcus's worthless wife was preparing to acquire control of his empire through methods that would render his condescension irrelevant and his arrogance self-destructive. The transformation from dismissed partner to secret adversary had begun with Marcus's casual dismissal of my contributions during our 8th anniversary dinner. However, the strategic response to that dismissal would require 4 additional years of systematic preparation before it could be revealed in the spectacular fashion that would redefine our marriage and reshape Sterling Industries' ownership structure.
The foundation for extraordinary revenge was being built on the solid ground of superior intelligence, comprehensive planning, and absolute determination to prove that the capabilities Marcus had dismissed were actually the keys to controlling everything he believed he had built through individual effort and exclusive vision. The transformation from accepting wife to strategic adversary required a fundamental reconceptualization of what was possible when intelligence and determination were combined with access to privileged information and unlimited time for careful planning. The morning after Marcus dismissed my contributions during our 8th anniversary dinner, I woke with absolute clarity about the choice before me: accept permanent marginalization within a success story I had helped create, or demonstrate that the capabilities he had systematically underestimated were actually sufficient to acquire control of everything he believed he owned. The decision to pursue the latter option emerged from recognizing that my current position, however diminished in terms of recognition and authority, provided advantages that external competitors could never access. My role as Marcus's wife granted me comprehensive insight into Sterling Industries' strategic planning processes, financial structure, and operational vulnerabilities that would be invaluable for an informed investor seeking to identify acquisition opportunities. My continued presence at board meetings, strategy sessions, and social events with key business associates provided ongoing intelligence-gathering capabilities that exceeded what professional analysts could achieve through conventional research methods. Most significantly, I possessed analytical skills and strategic thinking capabilities that had been validated through Harvard Business School and refined through practical application at McKinsey. The systematic dismissal of these abilities did not eliminate their existence or effectiveness. It simply created camouflage that would allow me to apply them toward objectives that Marcus could never anticipate or prepare to defend against. The development of my acquisition strategy began with comprehensive analysis of Sterling Industries' corporate structure, ownership arrangements, and financial obligations that revealed opportunities for gaining control through methods that exploited the complexity Marcus had created to optimize tax benefits and operational flexibility. The company's rapid growth had been achieved through a sophisticated network of subsidiary corporations, partnership agreements, and debt financing arrangements that created multiple potential entry points for strategic investors who understood the relationships between different business units. The most significant discovery from this analysis was that Sterling Industries' most valuable assets, including their prime Manhattan office buildings and development projects worth over $800 million, were held through subsidiary companies that could be acquired independently of the parent corporation. Marcus had structured these holdings to minimize tax exposure and limit liability for individual development projects, but this complex ownership architecture also created opportunities for investors who could identify and purchase the subsidiaries that controlled the most profitable property. The beauty of this structural vulnerability was that acquiring control of key subsidiaries would provide effective control over Sterling Industries' revenue-generating assets, without triggering the defensive responses that direct acquisition attempts would inevitably provoke. Marcus and his management team monitored Sterling Industries' stock ownership and acquisition approaches directed toward the parent company, but they paid minimal attention to transaction activity involving the subsidiary entities that actually owned the properties generating their profit. My strategic framework focused on systematic acquisition of these subsidiary companies through a carefully orchestrated campaign that would establish majority ownership positions, while maintaining complete secrecy about my identity and ultimate objective. This approach required developing the financial resources necessary to fund substantial acquisitions, creating the legal and corporate infrastructure to execute complex transactions, and maintaining the operational discipline to avoid any actions that might reveal my activities before achieving sufficient ownership concentration to make defensive responses ineffective. The financial foundation for this strategy came from repositioning my inheritance and personal assets toward high-growth investments that could generate the substantial returns necessary to fund major real estate acquisitions. My grandmother's conservative investment portfolio, which had been generating modest returns through blue-chip stocks and government bonds, was systematically redirected toward technology stocks and emerging market opportunities that offered greater appreciation potential despite increased volatility and risk. The timing for this investment repositioning proved fortuitous, as the technology sector was entering a period of extraordinary growth that would generate returns exceeding 300% over the subsequent 4 years. Companies like Amazon, Google, and Apple were transitioning from promising startups to dominant market leaders, creating wealth accumulation opportunities for investors who possessed the analytical capabilities to identify superior business models and sustainable competitive advantage. My McKinsey training proved invaluable for evaluating technology companies using strategic frameworks that emphasized long-term market position rather than short-term profitability metrics. While most investors focused on current earnings and traditional financial ratios, I evaluated technology investments based on network effects, scalability potential, and competitive moats that would determine future market dominance rather than immediate revenue generation. The profits from these technology investments provided seed capital for more aggressive strategies that would eventually fund the Sterling Industries acquisition campaign. However, the most important benefit from this investment success was validation that my analytical capabilities remained sharp and effective despite years of systematic dismissal from Marcus and his business associates. The substantial returns I achieved through independent investment decisions demonstrated that my Harvard MBA and McKinsey experience had provided genuine expertise that could generate extraordinary results when applied without external interference or condescending oversight. The legal infrastructure necessary for acquiring Sterling Industries' subsidiary required establishing multiple shell companies and investment vehicles that could execute transactions without revealing connections to me or triggering disclosure requirements that would alert Marcus to my activity. This process involved working with law firms and financial advisors who specialized in complex corporate structures but had no previous relationships with Sterling Industries or awareness of my ultimate objective. The most sophisticated element of this legal framework was creating Sterling Capital Management, an investment firm that appeared to be controlled by institutional investors seeking exposure to Manhattan commercial real estate opportunity. The firm's publicly filed documentation indicated that it represented pension funds and endowments seeking diversified real estate holdings, providing perfect cover for acquisition activities that would actually advance my personal strategic objective. Sterling Capital Management's investment thesis, as presented to potential partners and regulatory authorities, emphasized identifying undervalued real estate development companies whose growth potential was constrained by inadequate capital resources or suboptimal management practices. This positioning justified acquisition approaches directed towards Sterling Industries' subsidiary while providing plausible explanations for the intensive due diligence and market analysis that would be necessary to identify optimal targets and acquisition timing. The operational discipline required for maintaining secrecy while executing complex acquisitions tested every aspect of my strategic planning and project management capability. Each transaction required comprehensive legal review, financial analysis, and regulatory compliance that involved multiple professional service providers who could not be allowed to understand the broader pattern of acquisition activity or my ultimate control objective. The psychological challenges of this extended deception campaign were often more difficult than the technical complexities of structuring individual transactions. For 4 years, I maintained the facade of devoted wife and supportive spouse, while systematically acquiring control over the foundation of Marcus's business empire. Every social gathering, every family dinner, and every public appearance required careful attention to avoiding any behavior that might suggest strategic activities beyond traditional household management and social obligations. The isolation was profound and complete. I could not discuss my investment strategy with financial advisors, as they lacked sufficient information about Sterling Industries to appreciate the sophisticated approach I was implementing. I could not share my growing confidence and excitement with family members, who would have been alarmed by the financial risks I was accepting and the potential consequences for my marriage if my activities were discovered. I could not even celebrate intermediate victories when individual acquisitions succeeded or when my technology investments generated substantial profit. The first major acquisition breakthrough came during our 10th anniversary year, when Sterling Capital Management successfully purchased Meridian Holding, a subsidiary company that owned 3 of Sterling Industries' most valuable Manhattan office buildings, generating over $40 million in annual rental income. The transaction was structured as a routine real estate investment by institutional investors seeking stable income-producing properties, attracting no attention from Marcus or his management team, despite representing a significant shift in ownership of Sterling Industries' underlying assets. The success of the Meridian Holdings acquisition validated both my analytical framework and operational execution capabilities, while providing the confidence necessary to accelerate the acquisition campaign toward increasingly ambitious targets. Over the subsequent 18 months, Sterling Capital Management acquired controlling interests in 6 additional subsidiary companies that held Sterling Industries' most profitable development projects and income-producing property. Each acquisition built upon insights gained from previous transactions, while expanding my understanding of Sterling Industries' true financial structure and operational dependencies. The pattern that emerged from this comprehensive analysis was that Marcus had created an empire that appeared impressive from external perspectives, but was actually vulnerable to systematic acquisition by informed investors who understood the relationships between different business units and could identify the specific assets that generated the majority of profits and cash flow. The most significant insight from this acquisition campaign was recognizing that Sterling Industries' apparent success and Marcus's reputation as a visionary entrepreneur were actually based on a relatively small number of exceptional properties and development projects that generated disproportionate returns compared to the company's broader portfolio. Acquiring control of these core assets would provide effective control over Sterling Industries' future profitability and strategic options, regardless of Marcus's continued nominal authority as chief executive officer. By our 12th anniversary, Sterling Capital Management controlled subsidiaries that owned over 60% of Sterling Industries' most valuable real estate assets, representing properties worth more than $500 million and generating annual profits exceeding $50 million. However, the complex corporate structure meant that neither Marcus nor his financial advisors understood the implications of these subsidiary ownership changes, or recognized that effective control of their company had already been transferred to an investor whose identity remained completely hidden. Final phase of my acquisition strategy involved consolidating control over Sterling Industries itself through direct stock purchases and strategic investments that would force recognition of my ownership position, while maintaining the element of surprise that was crucial for maximum psychological impact. This required transitioning from the patient, incremental approach that had characterized the subsidiary acquisition campaign to more aggressive tactics that would quickly establish undeniable majority control before defensive responses could be implemented. The preparation for this final phase involved detailed analysis of Sterling Industries' stock ownership structure, identification of potential strategic partners who could accelerate the consolidation, and development of comprehensive legal documentation that would formalize my control position in ways that could not be challenged or reversed through litigation or regulatory intervention. The woman who had been systematically dismissed as intellectually inadequate for serious business decision-making was about to demonstrate that superior analytical capabilities, combined with comprehensive strategic planning and absolute determination, could achieve results that conventional business education and operational experience could never approximate. Marcus's worthless wife was preparing to reveal that she had acquired control of his empire through methods that rendered his expertise irrelevant and his condescension professionally devastating. The transition from theoretical planning to systematic execution required developing operational capabilities that could manage complex financial transactions while maintaining absolute secrecy about my identity and ultimate objective. The success of my initial subsidiary acquisitions had validated the strategic framework, but scaling this approach to achieve comprehensive control over Sterling Industries demanded sophisticated coordination between multiple investment vehicles, legal entities, and professional service providers who could not be allowed to understand the broader pattern of my acquisition activities. The establishment of Sterling Capital Management as my primary investment vehicle represented only the foundation layer of a much more elaborate corporate structure designed to obscure ownership relationships while providing maximum operational flexibility for executing increasingly ambitious transactions. The complete architecture included 7 separate shell companies, 3 investment partnerships, and 2 offshore holding entities that created multiple layers of separation between my personal identity and the acquisition activities that were systematically transferring control of Marcus's empire to my strategic direction. The legal complexity of this structure required working with 4 different law firms that specialized in distinct aspects of corporate transactions and regulatory compliance. None of these firms understood the complete scope of my activities or the strategic relationships between different transactions they were facilitating. Morrison, Webb and Associates handled the initial formation of Sterling Capital Management and its regulatory filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Blackstone Legal Partners managed the offshore holding company structures that provided additional privacy protection and tax optimization benefits. Davidson and Price specialized in real estate transaction documentation and due diligence processes
that supported individual property acquisition. Finally, Chen, Rodriguez and Mitchell focused on complex partnership agreements and joint venture structures that allowed Sterling Capital Management to collaborate with institutional investors seeking exposure to Manhattan commercial real estate opportunities. This distribution of legal responsibilities across multiple firms provided essential operational security while ensuring that each transaction received expert attention from attorneys who specialized in the specific regulatory and structural challenges involved. However, coordinating these diverse professional relationships required extraordinary attention to detail and communication management that tested my organizational capabilities in ways that my previous McKinsey experience had never demanded. The financial infrastructure supporting this acquisition campaign was equally sophisticated and required establishing relationships with investment banks, private wealth management firms, and institutional lenders who could provide the substantial capital resources necessary for acquiring major real estate assets. The challenge was accessing these funding sources without revealing my personal identity or creating documentation that might inadvertently alert Marcus or his business associates to my acquisition activity. The solution involved leveraging the credibility and institutional relationships that Sterling Capital Management had established through successful subsidiary acquisitions during the previous 18 months. The firm's track record of identifying undervalued real estate opportunities and executing profitable transactions had attracted attention from pension funds, university endowments, and private family offices seeking diversified exposure to Manhattan commercial property market. These institutional relationships provided access to substantial investment capital while maintaining operational secrecy about my ultimate control objective. Sterling Capital Management's investors understood that they were participating in a sophisticated real estate investment strategy, but they had no knowledge of the personal motivations or strategic targeting that actually drove my acquisition decision. From their perspective, they were simply partnering with an exceptionally capable investment manager who had demonstrated superior analytical capabilities and consistent execution excellence. The most significant institutional partnership was established with the Teachers' Retirement System of New York, which committed $150 million to Sterling Capital Management's real estate investment fund, based on the firm's exceptional performance during its initial operating period. This capital infusion provided the financial resources necessary to accelerate the acquisition timeline while maintaining the patient, methodical approach that had characterized my strategy since its inception. The psychological demands of managing this complex deception campaign while maintaining my facade as Marcus's devoted wife required developing emotional and operational disciplines that extended far beyond the analytical capabilities that had made my initial success possible. Every social interaction, every family gathering, and every public appearance demanded careful attention to avoiding any behavior that might suggest strategic activities beyond traditional household management and charitable obligation. The most challenging aspect of this extended performance was managing the growing disconnect between my public persona and my actual daily responsibility. While Marcus and his business associates continued to view me as someone whose primary concerns involved charity events and social coordination, my actual schedule included multiple daily calls with investment advisors, legal counsel, and due diligence specialists who were facilitating transactions worth tens of millions of dollars. The operational security protocols necessary for maintaining this deception required establishing separate communication systems, meeting locations, and documentation storage that could not be connected to my personal activities or household routine. Sterling Capital Management maintained offices in a midtown Manhattan building that had no relationship to Sterling Industries or any of Marcus's business associates. All meetings with legal counsel, financial advisors, and potential investment partners were scheduled during times when Marcus expected me to be engaged in charitable activities or social obligations that he considered appropriate for his wife, but unworthy of his personal attention. The most sophisticated element of this operational security was developing cover stories and documentation that could explain any unusual activities or schedule changes that Marcus might notice. My involvement with the Manhattan Children's Foundation, which Marcus had always encouraged as appropriate charitable engagement for a successful businessman's wife, provided perfect justification for frequent meetings, travel requirements, and confidential discussions that actually related to my acquisition activities, rather than educational fundraising. The emotional isolation required by this extended deception was profound and tested my psychological resilience in ways that no previous challenge had demanded. For over 3 years, I could not share my growing excitement about the extraordinary success of my investment strategy with anyone who could appreciate the sophistication of what I was accomplishing. The validation of superior returns from my technology investments and the strategic brilliance of my real estate acquisition campaign remained completely private achievements that could not be celebrated or even acknowledged. However, this isolation also provided clarity and focus that enhanced my analytical capabilities and strategic decision-making processes. Without external pressure to explain or justify my approaches, I could pursue optimal strategies based exclusively on objective analysis and long-term value creation rather than conventional wisdom or social expectations about appropriate investment behavior for women in my social position. The acquisition campaign accelerated dramatically during our 13th anniversary year, when Sterling Capital Management identified and successfully pursued Pinnacle Development Corporation, the subsidiary company that owned Sterling Industries' most ambitious development project, a mixed-use complex in Lower Manhattan that would generate over $100 million in revenue upon completion. The Pinnacle acquisition represented the largest and most complex transaction I had attempted, requiring coordination between multiple investment partners, sophisticated financing arrangements, and regulatory approvals that attracted significantly more scrutiny than my previous subsidiary purchases. The success of the Pinnacle acquisition required demonstrating analytical capabilities and transaction management skills that exceeded what most professional real estate investors could achieve, even with substantial institutional support and experienced advisory team. The due diligence process revealed complex environmental issues, regulatory challenges, and financing complications that had prevented other potential acquirers from pursuing the opportunity despite recognizing its substantial value creation potential. My ability to identify creative solutions for these obstacles while structuring a transaction that satisfied all stakeholders demonstrated the practical application of strategic thinking that my McKinsey training had developed, and my years of observing Marcus's business operations had refined. The successful completion of this acquisition provided decisive validation that my capabilities exceeded those of the professional real estate executives who comprised Marcus's management team and commanded his respect and substantial compensation. The strategic implications of controlling Pinnacle Development Corporation extended far beyond the immediate financial benefits of owning Sterling Industries' most valuable development project. The subsidiary's ownership included development rights and zoning approvals that would be essential for Sterling Industries' future growth strategy in Manhattan commercial real estate market. Acquiring Pinnacle provided effective veto power over Marcus's most ambitious expansion plans, while positioning me to influence or block strategic decisions that could affect Sterling Industries' competitive position and long-term profitability. The completion of the Pinnacle acquisition also marked a crucial transition in my strategic approach from patient accumulation of individual assets to comprehensive preparation for revealing my ownership position and asserting operational control over Sterling Industries. With subsidiaries controlling over 70% of the company's most valuable properties and development projects, I had achieved sufficient ownership concentration to make defensive responses ineffective while ensuring that any confrontation with Marcus would occur from a position of undeniable strategic advantage. The final phase of my acquisition strategy required transitioning from the methodical, incremental approach that had characterized the subsidiary campaign to more aggressive tactics that would quickly establish majority control over Sterling Industries itself before Marcus or his management team could implement defensive measures. This transition demanded developing new operational capabilities for managing direct confrontation and public revelation that would end the secrecy that had protected my activities during the accumulation phase. The preparation for this final phase involved comprehensive analysis of Sterling Industries' stock ownership structure, detailed planning for the legal and financial mechanisms that would formalize my control position, and strategic consideration of the optimal timing and methodology for revealing my ownership to Marcus and the broader business community in ways that would maximize psychological impact while minimizing potential litigation or regulatory complication. The woman who had spent 4 years systematically acquiring control over her husband's empire while maintaining the facade of devoted wife was preparing to demonstrate that superior intelligence, comprehensive strategic planning, and absolute determination could achieve results that conventional business experience and operational expertise could never anticipate or defend against. The worthless wife was about to reveal that she had become the controlling owner of everything Marcus believed he had built through individual brilliance and exclusive vision. The transition from methodical asset accumulation to comprehensive strategic positioning required developing capabilities that could simultaneously accelerate the acquisition timeline while maintaining the operational secrecy that had protected my activities during the previous 4 years. The successful completion of the Pinnacle Development Corporation acquisition had demonstrated that Sterling Capital Management possessed the analytical sophistication and execution capabilities necessary to pursue increasingly ambitious targets. But achieving majority control over Sterling Industries itself would demand coordination between multiple strategic initiatives that had never been attempted simultaneously. The complexity of this final phase emerged from recognizing that direct stock purchases alone could not provide sufficient ownership concentration before triggering disclosure requirements that would alert Marcus to my acquisition activity. Sterling Industries had evolved into a publicly traded company with diverse ownership that included institutional investors, pension funds, and individual shareholders, whose combined holdings represented significant obstacles to rapid consolidation through conventional purchase methods. The solution required developing a comprehensive strategy that combined direct stock acquisitions with strategic partnerships, proxy arrangement, and derivative instruments that could establish effective control without triggering regulatory thresholds that would require public disclosure of my ownership position. This approach demanded sophisticated understanding of securities regulations, institutional investor behavior, and corporate governance structures that extended far beyond the real estate expertise that had characterized my previous acquisition activity. The first element of this comprehensive strategy involved identifying institutional shareholders whose investment objectives aligned with my long-term vision for Sterling Industries, while providing opportunities for collaborative arrangements that could accelerate the consolidation. The most promising potential partner was Metropolitan Pension Fund, which held 12% of Sterling Industries stock as part of their diversified real estate investment portfolio, but had expressed frustration with the company's inconsistent dividend payments and conservative growth strategy. Metropolitan's investment committee included financial professionals who possessed the analytical capabilities to appreciate the strategic value of the subsidiary holdings that Sterling Capital Management had accumulated, while understanding the implications of comprehensive corporate restructure could unlock significant value creation opportunities.
More importantly, Metropolitan's institutional charter required fiduciary responsibility to their pension beneficiaries that would prioritize investment returns over personal loyalty to Marcus or concern about disrupting existing management arrangements. The approach to Metropolitan required presenting a compelling investment thesis that demonstrated how strategic changes in Sterling Industries' operational structure and capital allocation could generate superior returns for all shareholders, while positioning the company for accelerated growth in Manhattan's evolving commercial real estate markets. This presentation demanded synthesizing 4 years of acquisition analysis, market research, and operational insights into comprehensive strategic recommendations that could withstand scrutiny from sophisticated institutional investors. The development of this investment thesis revealed patterns in Sterling Industries' performance that had not been apparent during my individual subsidiary acquisitions, but became clear when analyzing the company's complete operational structure and competitive position. The most significant insight was recognizing that Marcus had created an organization whose apparent success masked systematic inefficiencies and missed opportunities that were constraining the company's value creation potential, despite controlling exceptional real estate assets in premium Manhattan locations. The core problem was that Sterling Industries operated with organizational structures and decision-making processes designed for a much smaller company, creating bottlenecks and resource allocation inefficiencies that prevented optimal utilization of their expanding property portfolio. The rapid growth that had established Marcus's reputation as a visionary entrepreneur had actually been achieved through individual transaction excellence rather than systematic operational optimization, leaving substantial value creation opportunities unaddressed. More critically, Sterling Industries' strategic planning processes remained focused on traditional real estate development approaches that failed to capitalize on emerging trends in commercial property utilization, technology integration, and tenant service delivery that were reshaping competitive dynamics in Manhattan market. The company's premium assets were generating modest returns compared to their potential because management lacked the analytical capabilities and operational flexibility necessary for implementing innovative value enhancement strategies. The presentation to Metropolitan Pension Fund documented specific opportunities for improving Sterling Industries' performance through strategic initiatives that could increase property values, optimize tenant relationships, and accelerate development project completion while reducing operational costs and capital requirements. The projected financial impact of these improvements indicated potential for increasing Sterling Industries' market valuation by 40 to 60% within 3 years, representing extraordinary returns for shareholders who could facilitate the necessary management and strategic change. Metropolitan's investment committee responded with enthusiasm that exceeded my most optimistic expectations, while requesting additional analysis that would support their fiduciary evaluation of potential partnership arrangements. Their primary concern involved ensuring that any collaborative strategy would provide sufficient oversight and influence to protect their beneficiaries' interests, while maximizing the value creation opportunities that comprehensive corporate restructuring could generate. The partnership agreement that emerged from 6 months of negotiations established Metropolitan Pension Fund as a strategic partner in acquiring additional Sterling Industries stock, while providing Sterling Capital Management with proxy voting authority over Metropolitan's existing holdings during any governance disputes, strategic decisions that might arise during the ownership consolidation process. This arrangement effectively increased my voting control to 28% of Sterling Industries' outstanding shares, while maintaining Metropolitan's independent investment position for regulatory and fiduciary purposes. The second major element of my consolidation strategy involved identifying individual shareholders whose investment positions could be acquired through private transactions that would avoid public market activity and potential disclosure requirements. Sterling Industries' shareholder registry included numerous small investors who had purchased stock during the company's initial public offering, but had minimal ongoing engagement with corporate governance or strategic direction decisions. Many of these individual shareholders viewed Sterling Industries as a stable dividend-producing investment rather than a growth opportunity, making them potentially receptive to premium purchase offers that would provide immediate returns superior to their expected long-term holding benefit. The challenge was identifying shareholders whose combined holdings represented meaningful ownership concentration, while developing acquisition approaches that would not attract attention from Marcus or his management team. The solution required establishing Hartwell Investment Services, a separate investment vehicle that could approach individual shareholders with purchase offers that appeared to be routine portfolio diversification activities rather than systematic consolidation efforts directed toward a specific strategic objective. Hartwell presented itself as a wealth management firm, seeking to build diversified portfolios for high net worth clients who preferred direct stock ownership over mutual fund or exchange-traded fund alternative. This approach proved remarkably successful during the 18 months leading up to our 15th anniversary, with Hartwell acquiring stock positions from 47 individual investors whose combined holdings represented 11% of Sterling Industries' outstanding share. Each transaction was structured as a private sale that avoided public market activity while providing selling shareholders with premium valuations that exceeded current market prices by 15 to 20%. The success of this individual shareholder acquisition campaign demonstrated that most Sterling Industries investors lacked sophisticated understanding of the company's true value potential and were primarily motivated by short-term financial considerations rather than long-term strategic vision. This pattern suggested that comprehensive consolidation could be achieved more easily than traditional corporate control contests because the shareholder base included limited institutional resistance to ownership concentration by informed investors. The third strategic element involved developed derivative instruments and financing arrangements that could provide effective control over additional Sterling Industries shares without requiring immediate stock purchases that might exhaust available capital resources or trigger unwanted regulatory attention. The most sophisticated approach involved establishing covered call option positions that would generate immediate income while providing the right to acquire substantial additional shareholdings at predetermined prices during specific time periods. These option arrangements required working with investment banks that specialized in complex derivative instruments and structured finance transactions designed for institutional investors seeking exposure to specific stocks or market sectors. The challenge was accessing these sophisticated financial services without revealing the strategic objectives that motivated my interest in Sterling Industries options rather than conventional real estate investment alternatives. The solution involved leveraging Sterling Capital Management's established reputation and institutional relationships to access derivative markets as part of a broader portfolio hedging and income generation strategy. The option positions were presented as sophisticated risk management tools that could provide downside protection for Sterling Capital Management's real estate investments while generating additional returns through premium collection and strategic timing flexibility. The derivative strategy ultimately provided effective control over an additional 14% of Sterling Industries shares through option contracts that could be exercised during the 6-month period surrounding our anniversary celebration. Combined with direct holdings, proxy arrangement, and individual shareholder acquisitions, these instruments would provide voting control over 68% of the company's outstanding shares, while maintaining operational flexibility for timing the revelation of my ownership position for maximum psychological and strategic impact. Completion of this comprehensive consolidation strategy represented the culmination of 5 years of systematic planning and execution that had transformed me from dismissed housewife to controlling shareholder of a billion-dollar corporation, without Marcus or his management team developing awareness of the ownership transfer that had fundamentally altered Sterling Industries' corporate governance structure. The woman who had been systematically underestimated and marginalized was positioned to demonstrate that superior analytical capabilities, comprehensive strategic plan, and absolute determination could achieve results that conventional business education and operational experience could never anticipate or prevent. The moment for revealing this extraordinary transformation was approaching with the precision timing that would maximize both personal vindication and strategic advantage. The achievement of controlling ownership required transitioning from external acquisition strategies to internal intelligence gathering that could identify optimal timing for revealing my position, while preparing for the corporate governance challenges that would inevitably follow Marcus discovering his diminished authority. The complexity of managing Sterling Industries effectively demanded comprehensive understanding of operational details, personnel relationships, and strategic vulnerabilities that could only be acquired through systematic analysis of internal business processes and management decision-making patterns. The intelligence gathering operation that characterized the final 18 months before our anniversary revelation represented the most sophisticated phase of my 5-year strategy, requiring capabilities that extended far beyond the financial analysis and transaction management skills that had enabled successful subsidiary acquisition. The challenge involved developing comprehensive knowledge about Sterling Industries' day-to-day operations, competitive positioning, and organizational dynamics, while maintaining my facade as Marcus's devoted wife, whose primary concerns remained household management and charitable activity. The foundation for this intelligence operation was recognizing that my continued presence at board meetings, strategy sessions, social events, with key business associates, provided access to confidential information that external analysts and potential competitors could never obtain through conventional research methods. However, transforming casual exposure to business discussions into actionable strategic intelligence required developing systematic documentation and analysis capabilities that could identify patterns and opportunities that even sophisticated industry experts might miss. The first element of this intelligence framework involved creating comprehensive profiles of Sterling Industries' key personnel, including board members, senior management, major client and strategic partners, whose decisions and relationships would influence the company's future performance and competitive position. These profiles extended beyond basic professional backgrounds to include detailed analysis of individual motivations, performance metrics, compensation arrangements, and personal relationships that might affect their loyalty to Marcus during any future governance dispute. The board member analysis revealed significant vulnerabilities in Marcus's support structure that would become crucial during the transition to my operational control. 3 of the 7 board members had been appointed based on their social connections rather than relevant business expertise, making them potentially receptive to leadership changes that could improve Sterling Industries' performance and their own reputational association with company success. 2 additional board members represented institutional investors whose fiduciary responsibilities would require supporting strategic changes that enhanced shareholder value regardless of their personal relationships with Marcus. The senior management assessment identified even more substantial opportunities for organizational improvement that Marcus had failed to address despite obvious performance deficiencies and strategic misalignment. The chief financial officer lacked experience with the complex financing structures that had become essential for Sterling Industries' continued growth in Manhattan's competitive real estate market. The head of development possessed technical competence, but demonstrated consistent poor judgment regarding market timing and tenant relationship management. Most significantly, the chief operating officer had been promoted based on personal loyalty rather than operational capabilities, creating systematic inefficiencies throughout the organization. These personnel weaknesses represented immediate opportunities for value creation through strategic reorganization and improved leadership alignment. But they also revealed the extent to which Sterling Industries' apparent success had been achieved despite rather than because of optimal management practices. Marcus's reputation as a visionary entrepreneur had masked organizational problems that were constraining the company's performance and creating vulnerabilities that competitors or activist investors could eventually exploit. The client relationship analysis provided equally valuable insights into Sterling Industries' competitive position and growth potential within Manhattan commercial real estate market. The company's client base included prestigious corporations and high-net-worth individuals who generated substantial rental income and development fees, but the relationship management approach lacked the sophisticated service delivery and strategic partnership development that characterized industry leaders. More critically, Sterling Industries had failed to capitalize on emerging trends in commercial real estate utilization that were creating new revenue opportunities for firms that could adapt their service offerings to meet evolving client needs. The technology integration, flexible space design, and sustainability initiatives that were becoming standard expectations among premium tenants remained underdeveloped within Sterling Industries' property portfolio,
representing missed opportunities for differentiation and premium pricing. The competitive analysis revealed that Sterling Industries occupied a strong market position based on exceptional property locations and Marcus's personal reputation, but the company lacked systematic competitive advantages that would ensure long-term market leadership as industry dynamics continued evolving. The organization's strategic planning processes remained focused on traditional real estate development approaches rather than comprehensive value creation strategies that integrated property management, tenant services, and market positioning into cohesive competitive differentiation. These intelligence insights provided the foundation for developing comprehensive strategic recommendations that would guide Sterling Industries' transformation under my leadership, while demonstrating to board members, institutional investment, key stakeholders that ownership consolidation represented an opportunity for enhanced performance, rather than disruptive change motivated by personal consideration. The strategic framework that emerged from this analysis emphasized three primary value creation opportunities that would distinguish Sterling Industries from competitors while generating superior returns for shareholders. The first opportunity involved implementing advanced technology systems that would optimize property management efficiency, enhance tenant satisfaction, and provide data analytics capabilities that could inform strategic decision-making across the entire portfolio. The technology implementation strategy required partnerships with specialized firms that could provide comprehensive systems integration while maintaining operational continuity during the transition period. The projected benefits included reduced operational costs, improved tenant retention, and enhanced property values that would generate additional returns exceeding the implementation investment within 18 months. The second strategic opportunity focused on developing innovative tenant service offerings that would differentiate Sterling Industries properties from competitors while justifying premium rental rates and longer lease commitments. These services would include concierge programs, fitness facilities, conference services, and business support capabilities that transformed traditional office buildings into comprehensive workplace ecosystems. The tenant service strategy required recruiting specialized personnel and establishing operational partnerships that could deliver consistent, high-quality experiences across Sterling Industries' diverse property portfolio. The competitive advantage would emerge from creating tenant environments that enhanced productivity and satisfaction while reducing clients' operational costs and administrative burden. The third value creation opportunity involved accelerating development project completion through improved project management, contractor relationships, and regulatory compliance that would reduce construction timelines and capital requirements while maintaining quality standards. The efficiency improvements would enable Sterling Industries to capitalize on market opportunities more rapidly than competitors while generating earlier returns on development investment. The development acceleration strategy required reorganizing project management processes, establishing preferred contractor relationships, and implementing systematic quality control procedures that would ensure consistent execution excellence across multiple simultaneous projects. The competitive advantage would come from delivering superior projects faster and more cost-effectively than industry standard. The comprehensive strategic plan that integrated these value creation opportunities provided compelling evidence that Sterling Industries possessed extraordinary potential for performance improvement under enhanced leadership and operational optimization. The plan also demonstrated that my analytical capabilities and strategic vision exceeded those of Marcus and his management team, while offering board members and institutional investors clear pathways for achieving superior returns through supportive governance during the transition period. The final element of my intelligence operation involved developing detailed contingency plans for managing potential defensive responses that Marcus might attempt once my ownership position became public knowledge. The analysis of his personality, decision-making pattern, and historical responses to challenges suggested that he would likely pursue litigation, media manipulation, and stakeholder pressure campaigns designed to discredit my qualifications and motivations while maintaining his operational authority, despite diminished ownership influence. The defensive strategy preparation involved engaging additional legal counsel who specialized in corporate governance disputes, establishing relationships with public relations professionals who could manage media narratives during contentious transition, and developing comprehensive documentation that would support my qualifications and strategic vision while demonstrating the legitimacy of my acquisition methods and ownership consolidation. The legal preparation included detailed analysis of Sterling Industries' corporate charter, governance procedures, and fiduciary requirements that would govern board member responsibilities during ownership transition. The documentation demonstrated that my acquisition activities had been conducted in full compliance with securities regulations and corporate law, while providing clear legal authority for asserting operational control commensurate with majority ownership position. The public relations strategy involved developing comprehensive messaging frameworks that would position the ownership transition as an opportunity for enhanced performance and strategic innovation, rather than personal conflict or vindictive action motivated by marital consideration. The messaging emphasized my qualifications, strategic vision, and commitment to value creation for all stakeholders, while acknowledging the unconventional circumstances that had enabled my comprehensive corporate analysis and acquisition strategy. The stakeholder communication plan included individualized approaches for board members, institutional investors, key clients, and senior management that would address their specific concerns while building support for strategic changes that would benefit their respective interests. The communication strategy recognized that successful transition required coalition building rather than confrontational assertion of authority based exclusively on ownership concentration. The woman who had been systematically dismissed as intellectually inadequate for serious business responsibilities was prepared to demonstrate that comprehensive strategic analysis, sophisticated execution capability, and absolute determination could achieve results that exceeded anything Marcus and his management team had accomplished through conventional approaches and traditional business relations. The transformation from covert acquisition strategy to operational readiness required building coalition support that would enable effective corporate governance while minimizing resistance from stakeholders whose cooperation would determine Sterling Industries' future success under new leadership. The complexity of managing a billion-dollar real estate corporation demanded collaborative relationships that extended far beyond the ownership concentration that had established my controlling position, requiring sophisticated alliance building that could unite diverse interests around shared objectives for enhanced performance and strategic growth. The foundation for this alliance development emerged from recognizing that successful corporate transitions depend upon stakeholder confidence in leadership capabilities rather than simple assertion of ownership authority. Board members, institutional investors, key clients, and senior management would evaluate my qualifications based on demonstrated competence and strategic vision rather than the acquisition methods that had established my majority ownership position. The credibility necessary for effective leadership required proving analytical sophistication and operational understanding that exceeded conventional expectations for corporate governance transition. The first strategic alliance involved deepening the partnership relationship with Metropolitan Pension Fund beyond the proxy voting arrangements that had supported my ownership consolidation. Metropolitan's investment committee possessed sophisticated expertise in corporate governance, transition, and fiduciary responsibilities that could provide valuable guidance while lending institutional credibility to strategic changes that might otherwise appear driven by personal motivations rather than objective business considerations. The expanded partnership with Metropolitan required present comprehensive strategic analysis that demonstrated how proposed organizational improvements would generate superior returns for all shareholders while positioning Sterling Industries for accelerated growth in evolving commercial real estate market. The presentation integrated financial projections, competitive analysis, and operational recommendations into compelling evidence that current management approaches were constraining value creation opportunities despite controlling exceptional property assets in premium Manhattan locations. Metropolitan's Investment Committee responded with enthusiasm that validated both my analytical capabilities and strategic vision, while providing institutional support that would be crucial for managing potential governance challenges during the transition period. Their commitment to supporting strategic changes that enhanced shareholder value established precedent for other institutional investors while providing professional credibility that would address concerns about leadership qualifications and corporate governance stability. The partnership agreement that emerged from these discussions established Metropolitan Pension Fund as a strategic advisor for organizational restructuring while maintaining their independent investment position for regulatory and fiduciary purposes. This arrangement provided access to institutional expertise while demonstrating collaborative governance approaches that prioritized shareholder interests over personal considerations or traditional management loyalty. The second crucial alliance involved building support among Sterling Industries board members through individual relationship development that could identify shared objectives and common ground for supporting strategic improvement. The board member analysis that had characterized my intelligence gathering operation provided detailed understanding of individual motivations and concerns that could be addressed through targeted communication and strategic position. The approach to board member engagement required balancing transparency about my ownership position with tactical timing that would maximize receptivity to strategic discussions while minimizing defensive responses that might complicate governance transition processes. The strategy involved initiating informal conversations during social events and charity functions where board members might be more receptive to discussing Sterling Industries' performance challenges and growth opportunities outside formal corporate settings. The most promising initial target was Margaret Thornton, an independent board member whose background in corporate strategy consulting provided analytical capabilities that would enable sophisticated evaluation of proposed organizational improvement. Margaret had privately expressed concerns about Sterling Industries' conservative growth strategy and missed opportunities for technology integration that aligned perfectly with my strategic recommendations for value creation through operational optimization. The development of relationship with Margaret required demonstrating analytical sophistication that would establish credibility for serious strategic discussions while revealing my comprehensive understanding of Sterling Industries' competitive position and operational challenges. The conversations that developed over several months revealed shared frustration with current management's resistance to innovation and strategic adaptation that was constraining the company's potential for market leadership in evolving commercial real estate environment. Margaret's growing confidence in my strategic capabilities led to informal discussions about governance, structures, and board responsibilities that would be necessary for implementing comprehensive organizational improvement. These conversations provided valuable insights into board dynamics and decision-making processes while establishing foundation for collaborative governance during the transition period that would follow my ownership revelation.
Goldman's Real Estate Committee had expressed interest in expanded partnership opportunities that could provide additional value beyond traditional landlord-tenant relationships, creating potential for strategic collaboration that would benefit both organizations. The approach to Goldman required demonstrating strategic vision that could identify mutual value creation opportunities while providing evidence of operational capabilities that would support reliable partnership execution. The discussions that developed focused on comprehensive workplace solutions that would integrate property management, technology services, and business support capabilities into differentiated tenant experiences that exceeded conventional real estate service offerings. Goldman's response indicated substantial interest in enhanced partnership arrangements that could provide operational advantages while supporting their own corporate objectives for workplace optimization and employee satisfaction. Their willingness to explore expanded collaboration provided validation for strategic approaches that could be replicated with other premium clients, while generating additional revenue streams that would distinguish Sterling Industries from traditional real estate providers. The client alliance development strategy also included approaching several high-growth technology companies whose expansion plans required sophisticated real estate solutions that aligned with Sterling Industries' capabilities while providing opportunities for innovative partnership structure. These relationships would demonstrate market leadership in emerging commercial real estate trends while generating premium returns through value-added service delivery. The fourth critical alliance involved engaging with senior management personnel whose expertise and institutional knowledge would be essential for implementing strategic changes while maintaining operational continuity during the transition period. The management assessment had identified several individuals whose capabilities exceeded their current responsibilities while revealing opportunities for enhanced performance through improved organizational structure and strategic alignment. The most valuable potential ally was Jennifer Walsh, the Director of Property Management, whose analytical capabilities and operational excellence had been constrained by organizational limitations rather than personal shortcomings. Jennifer's frustration with current management's resistance to technology integration and process improvement aligned with strategic priorities that would be emphasized under new leadership, while her institutional knowledge would be crucial for successful implementation. The relation development with Jennifer required balancing transparency about planned organizational changes with tactical discretion about ownership, transition timing that would maximize her receptivity to enhanced responsibilities while maintaining operational security until the appropriate revelation moment. The conversations that developed revealed shared commitment to operational excellence and strategic innovation that provided foundation for collaborative leadership during transition processes. Jennifer's willingness to support strategic improvements that would enhance Sterling Industries' competitive position provided credibility with other management personnel while demonstrating coalition-building capabilities that would be essential for effective corporate governance. Her expertise regarding operational challenges and improvement opportunities informed strategic planning, while her support provided legitimacy for organizational changes that might otherwise appear disruptive or motivated by personal consideration. The alliance-building strategy also included engaging with several other senior managers whose specialized expertise would be valuable for implementing specific aspects of comprehensive strategic improvement. These relationships provided diverse perspectives on operational challenges while building coalition support that would facilitate smooth transition processes and enhanced performance under new leadership direction. The comprehensive alliance development that characterized the final year before ownership revelation established collaborative relationships that would enable effective corporate governance while minimizing resistance from stakeholders whose cooperation would determine Sterling Industries' future success. The strategic partnerships with institutional investors, board members, key clients, and senior management created foundation for leadership transition that prioritized shared objectives for enhanced performance rather than confrontational assertion of ownership authority based exclusively on financial control. The women who had been systematically underestimated prepared to demonstrate that sophisticated relationship building and collaborative governance could achieve organizational transformation that exceeded anything possible through traditional management approaches or conventional corporate leadership transition. The orchestration of revealing my ownership position required developing comprehensive understanding of market dynamics, regulatory requirements, and psychological factors that would determine the success of transitioning from covert acquisition to public assertion of corporate control. The complexity of managing this revelation demanded precise coordination between multiple strategic elements while maintaining operational secrecy until the optimal moment when maximum impact could be achieved with minimal defensive responses from Marcus and his management team. The timing analysis began with detailed evaluation of Sterling Industries' quarterly performance cycles in the specific periods when stakeholder attention would be focused on financial results and strategic direction decisions. The company's earnings announcements, board meetings, and annual shareholder gatherings represented moments when ownership discussions would receive heightened scrutiny while providing natural platforms for addressing governance questions that might arise from significant ownership concentration. The most promising opportunity emerged from recognizing that our 15th wedding anniversary celebration would coincide with Sterling Industries' strongest quarterly performance in company history, creating circumstances where my ownership revelation would occur during a period of operational success rather than financial stress or strategic uncertainty. This timing would demonstrate that the ownership transition represented an opportunity for enhanced performance rather than defensive response to corporate challenges or market pressure. The anniversary celebration planning provided perfect justification for comprehensive stakeholder engagement while establishing social context that would maximize psychological impact when the ownership revelation occurred. The guest list included board members, institutional investors, major clients, and industry leaders, whose immediate reaction would influence broader market perception and stakeholder confidence in corporate governance stability during the transition period. The venue selection for the Plaza Hotel's Grand Ballroom ensured that the revelation would occur in prestigious surroundings that reinforced messages about Sterling Industries' market position and future aspirations, while providing appropriate setting for announcing strategic changes that would enhance shareholder value. Competitive positioning. The formal dinner format would require Marcus to address the assembled audience, creating natural opportunity for responding to his remarks with carefully prepared statements about ownership structure and strategic direction. The preparation for optimal timing required developing detailed contingency plans that could address various scenarios that might emerge during the revelation process while maintaining control over narrative development and stakeholder communication. The most critical consideration involved ensuring that the ownership disclosure would be perceived as strategic announcement rather than personal confrontation motivated by marital considerations rather than business objectives. The legal preparation for the revelation timing required coordination with securities attorneys who specialized in ownership disclosure requirements and corporate governance transition. The documentation process involved preparing comprehensive filings that would formalize my ownership position while demonstrating full compliance with regulatory requirements and corporate law standards that governed significant ownership concentration in publicly traded companies. The Securities and Exchange Commission filing preparation required detailed analysis of acquisition timelines and transaction structures that would demonstrate systematic investment strategy rather than sudden ownership accumulation that might raise questions about insider trading or market manipulation. The documentation emphasized the sophisticated analytical process that had identified Sterling Industries as undervalued investment opportunity while providing evidence of legitimate business judgment that supported acquisition decisions. The corporate governance documentation included comprehensive analysis of board responsibilities and fiduciary requirements that would govern transition processes while establishing legal framework for asserting operational authority commensurate with majority ownership position. The legal analysis demonstrated clear authority for implementing strategic changes that enhanced shareholder value while providing protection against potential litigation that Marcus might pursue in response to diminished management control. The public relations preparation for revelation timing involved developing comprehensive messaging frameworks that would position the ownership transition as validation of Sterling Industries' market potential rather than disruption motivated by personal consideration. The communication strategy emphasized my qualifications and strategic vision while providing evidence that ownership consolidation represented opportunity for accelerated growth and enhanced competitive positioning. The media engagement strategy included preparing for potential interview requests and public statements that would be necessary for managing narrative development during the initial period following ownership revelation. The messaging preparation involved developing clear explanations for acquisition methods and strategic objectives that would demonstrate business sophistication
while addressing potential concerns about corporate governance, stability, and operational continuity. The stakeholder communication planning required individualized approaches for different audience segments whose specific concerns and interests would influence their response to ownership transition announcement. Board members would receive detailed strategic analysis that demonstrated value creation opportunities, while institutional investors would be provided with financial projections and performance improvement plans that supported their fiduciary evaluation requirement. The client communication strategy emphasized operational continuity and enhanced service delivery that would result from strategic improvements, while providing assurance that existing relationships and contractual commitments would be maintained and strengthened under new leadership direction. The approach recognized that client confidence would be essential for maintaining revenue stability during transition processes, while supporting expansion opportunities that required trust in corporate governance and operational capability. The employee communication planning involved developing messages that would address potential concerns about job security and organizational stability, while emphasizing opportunities for professional development and enhanced performance that would result from strategic improvement. The approach recognized that employee support would be crucial for successful implementation of operational changes, while maintaining productivity and service quality during transition period. The financial market preparation for revelation timing required analysis of trading patterns and investor sentiment that would influence stock price response to ownership disclosure and strategic announcement. The evaluation indicated that Sterling Industries' recent performance, strength, and positive market conditions would support favorable investor reaction to ownership concentration that was accompanied by credible strategic vision and operational improvement plan. The competitive analysis preparation involved evaluating potential responses from industry rivals who might attempt to capitalize on perceived uncertainty during corporate governance transition. The assessment indicated that Sterling Industries' market position and client relationships would provide protection against competitive pressure, while strategic improvements would actually strengthen competitive advantages rather than creating vulnerability to market share erosion. The regulatory compliance preparation required ensuring that revelation timing would satisfy all disclosure requirements, while maximizing strategic flexibility for implementing organizational changes that enhanced shareholder value. The analysis demonstrated that comprehensive ownership disclosure would actually strengthen Sterling Industries' corporate governance profile, while providing transparency that supported institutional investor confidence and regulatory approval for strategic initiative. The operational preparation for revelation timing involved ensuring that business continuity would be maintained during any initial disruption that might result from ownership transition announcement. The planning included detailed protocols for maintaining client services, completing development projects, and managing employee concerns, while implementing strategic changes that would enhance long-term performance and competitive positioning. The psychological preparation for revelation timing required developing emotional resilience and communication skills that would be necessary for managing intense scrutiny and potential criticism that might emerge during corporate governance transition. The preparation recognized that successful leadership during transition periods demanded confidence and composure that could inspire stakeholder confidence, while demonstrating competence that exceeded conventional expectations for corporate leadership capability. The comprehensive preparation for optimal revelation timing represented the culmination of 5 years of strategic planning and systematic execution that had transformed me from dismissed housewife to controlling shareholder of a billion-dollar corporation. The coordination of multiple strategic elements demonstrated analytical sophistication and operational capabilities that exceeded anything Marcus and his management team had achieved through conventional business approaches and traditional corporate governance methods. The woman who had been systematically underestimated was prepared to demonstrate that superior strategic planning, comprehensive preparation, and precise execution could achieve organizational transformation that would redefine Sterling Industries' competitive position while providing validation that intelligence and determination could overcome any initial disadvantage when combined with systematic effort and absolute commitment to excellence. The preparation for revealing my ownership position required developing leadership capabilities that could command respect from sophisticated business professionals who would evaluate my qualifications based on demonstrated competence rather than acquisition methods that had established majority control. The transformation from marginalized wife to corporate leader demanded systematic development of executive presence, strategic communication skills, and organizational management capabilities that would be essential for directing a billion-dollar real estate corporation through complex market environments and competitive challenge. The foundation for this personal transformation emerged from recognizing that successful corporate governance required leadership qualities that extended far beyond the analytical capabilities and strategic planning skills that had enabled my acquisition campaign. Board members, institutional investors, key clients, and senior management would assess my leadership potential based on confidence, decisiveness, and communication effectiveness that could inspire stakeholder confidence while demonstrating competence that exceeded conventional expectations for corporate executives. The development of executive presence required systematic training in areas that my Harvard MBA education and McKinsey experience had not comprehensively addressed during my previous professional development. The challenges of directing high-stakes corporate meetings, managing complex stakeholder relationships, and communicating strategic vision to diverse audiences demanded presentation skills and interpersonal capabilities that could be developed only through intensive preparation and practical. The executive coaching process involved working with leadership development specialists who had experience preparing senior executives for corporate governance, transitions, and high-visibility leadership roles. The coaching focused on developing communication techniques that could convey authority and expertise while maintaining collaborative approaches that would build coalition support rather than defensive resistance from existing stakeholders. The presentation skills development emphasized techniques for managing large audience communications during board meetings, shareholder gatherings, and industry conferences where clear articulation of strategic vision would be essential for maintaining stakeholder confidence and competitive positioning. The training included advanced preparation methods for handling challenging questions, managing contentious discussions, and maintaining composure during high-pressure interactions that would test leadership capabilities under scrutiny. The interpersonal communication training focused on developing relationship management skills that could build trust and collaboration with board members, institutional investors, and senior management, whose cooperation would be crucial for implementing strategic improvement. The approach emphasized authentic leadership styles that could demonstrate competence and vision while respecting existing relationships and organizational dynamics that had contributed to Sterling Industries' historical success. The strategic communication development involved learning advanced techniques for presenting complex analytical conclusions and strategic recommendations, and formats that could be easily understood and evaluated by diverse audiences with varying levels of technical expertise. The training emphasized clear articulation of value creation opportunities while providing compelling evidence that supported strategic changes without overwhelming stakeholders with excessive detail or analytical complexity. The organizational management preparation required developing comprehensive understanding of corporate governance, best practices, regulatory compliance requirements, and operational oversight responsibilities that would be essential for directing Sterling Industries effectively while maintaining legal and fiduciary standards that protected shareholder interests and corporate reputation. The corporate governance training emphasized understanding board dynamics, committee structures, and decision-making processes that would enable effective collaboration with independent directors while asserting appropriate leadership authority based on majority ownership position. The preparation included detailed analysis of legal frameworks that governed executive responsibilities and shareholder rights during corporate governance transition. The regulatory compliance education focused on developing thorough understanding of Securities and Exchange Commission requirements, real estate industry regulation, and corporate reporting obligations that would be essential for maintaining Sterling Industries' public company status while implementing strategic changes that enhanced operational efficiency and competitive positioning. The operational oversight preparation involved comprehensive analysis of real estate development processes, property management system, and financial controls that would enable effective supervision of Sterling Industries' diverse business activities while maintaining quality standards and operational excellence that supported client satisfaction and market reputation. The financial management development required advancing my analytical capabilities to include sophisticated understanding of corporate finance structures, capital allocation strategy, and performance measurement systems that would be necessary for optimizing Sterling Industries' financial performance while supporting strategic growth initiatives and shareholder value creation. The capital markets training emphasized techniques for managing relationships with institutional investors, debt providers, and strategic partners whose support would be essential for funding development projects and expansion opportunities, while maintaining financial flexibility that supported long-term strategic objectives. The performance measurement education focused on developing comprehensive frameworks for evaluating operational efficiency, competitive positioning, and strategic progress that would enable evidence-based decision-making while providing clear accountability standards for management performance and organizational improvement initiatives. The industry expertise development involved expanding my understanding of commercial real estate market dynamics, competitive trends, and regulatory developments that would influence Sterling Industries' strategic positioning, while identifying emerging opportunities for value creation and market leadership. The market analysis training emphasized advanced techniques for evaluating demand patterns, pricing trends, and competitive responses that would support strategic planning decisions while providing early identification of market shifts that might require operational adjustments or strategic repositioning. The technology integration education focused on understanding emerging real estate technology, digital transformation opportunities, and data analytics capabilities that would enable Sterling Industries to maintain competitive advantages while enhancing operational efficiency and tenant satisfaction through innovative service delivery approaches. The sustainability and environmental compliance preparation involved developing comprehensive understanding of green building standards, energy efficiency requirements, and environmental regulations that were becoming increasingly important factors in commercial real estate development and property management operations. The crisis management development required learning systematic approaches for handling unexpected challenges, stakeholder conflict, and operational disruptions that could threaten Sterling Industries' performance while maintaining leadership credibility and organizational stability during difficult periods. The media relations training emphasized techniques for managing public communications, handling interview requests, and controlling narrative development during periods of heightened attention or controversy that might result from corporate governance transitions or strategic announcement. The personal brand development involved creating authentic leadership identity that could integrate my analytical background with executive presence while demonstrating competence and vision that exceeded stakeholder expectations for corporate leadership capabilities. The comprehensive personal transformation that characterized the final year before ownership revelation represented systematic development of leadership capabilities that would enable effective corporate governance while building stakeholder confidence and strategic direction and operational excellence. The preparation demonstrated commitment to professional growth that extended far beyond the acquisition activities that had established majority ownership position. The woman who had been systematically dismissed as intellectually inadequate for serious business responsibilities was prepared to demonstrate that comprehensive personal development, combined with superior analytical capabilities and strategic vision, could enable leadership performance that exceeded conventional expectations while achieving organizational transformation that would redefine Sterling Industries' competitive position and market leadership potential. The final months preceding the anniversary revelation required orchestrating the convergence of 5 years of strategic preparation into a comprehensive framework that would enable seamless transition from covert ownership accumulation to effective corporate governance.
The complexity of coordinating multiple strategic initiatives while maintaining operational secrecy demanded unprecedented attention to detail and systematic integration of legal, financial, operational, and interpersonal elements that would determine the success of revealing my controlling position in Sterling Industries. The integration process began with comprehensive analysis of the optimal sequence for implementing various aspects of the ownership revelation and corporate governance transition. The strategic framework required careful coordination between regulatory disclosure requirements, stakeholder communication protocols, and operational changes that would demonstrate immediate value creation while minimizing disruption to ongoing business activities and client relationships. The regulatory compliance sequence involved preparing Securities and Exchange Commission filings that would formalize my ownership position while providing comprehensive documentation of acquisition methods and strategic objectives. The filing preparation required detailed analysis of transaction timelines and ownership concentration patterns that would demonstrate systematic investment strategy rather than sudden accumulation that might raise questions about market manipulation or insider trading violations. The ownership disclosure documentation emphasized the sophisticated analytical process that had identified Sterling Industries as an undervalued investment opportunity, while providing evidence of legitimate business judgment that supported acquisition decisions over the 5-year accumulation period. The analysis demonstrated that each subsidiary purchase and strategic investment had been based on independent evaluation of market opportunities and value creation potential, rather than privileged information or coordinated manipulation designed to circumvent disclosure requirements. The corporate governance transition documentation included comprehensive analysis of board responsibilities and fiduciary requirements that would govern leadership changes, while establishing legal framework for implementing strategic improvements that enhanced shareholder value. The legal analysis provided clear authority for asserting operational control commensurate with majority ownership position, while offering protection against potential litigation that Marcus might pursue in response to diminished management. The stakeholder communication sequence required coordinating disclosure timing across multiple audience segments whose specific concerns and interests would influence their response to ownership transition announcement. The communication strategy emphasized providing appropriate information to each stakeholder group while maintaining consistent messaging about strategic objectives and value creation opportunities that would result from enhanced corporate governance and operational improvement. The board member communication protocol involved individual meetings with independent directors who would be responsible for evaluating the ownership transition and potential governance change. The approach emphasized presenting comprehensive strategic analysis that demonstrated value creation opportunities, while providing evidence of leadership capabilities that would support effective corporate direction during the transition period and ongoing strategic implementation. The institutional investor communication strategy focused on providing detailed financial projections and performance improvement plans that would support fiduciary evaluation requirements, while demonstrating alignment between ownership concentration and enhanced shareholder value creation. The approach recognized that institutional support would be crucial for maintaining market confidence and regulatory approval during governance transition processes. The client communication framework emphasized operational continuity and enhanced service delivery that would result from strategic improvements, while providing assurance that existing relationships and contractual commitments would be maintained and strengthened under new leadership direction. The strategy included developing enhanced value propositions that would differentiate Sterling Industries from competitors while justifying premium pricing and longer-term partnership agreements. The employee communication planning involved developing messages that would address potential concerns about job security and organizational stability while emphasizing opportunities for professional development and enhanced performance that would result from strategic improvement. The approach recognized that employee support would be essential for successful implementation of operational changes while maintaining productivity and service quality during transition period. The operational integration sequence involved preparing detailed implementation plans for strategic improvements that would demonstrate immediate value creation while building foundation for long-term competitive advantage. The operational framework emphasized technology integration, process optimization, and service enhancement initiatives that would differentiate Sterling Industries from competitors while generating measurable performance improvements within the first year of new leadership. The technology implementation strategy focused on developing comprehensive systems that would optimize property management efficiency, enhance tenant satisfaction, and provide data analytics capabilities that would inform strategic decision-making across the entire portfolio. The technology integration plan included partnerships with specialized firms that could provide comprehensive systems while maintaining operational continuity during implementation process. The process optimization initiative emphasized eliminating operational inefficiencies that were constraining Sterling Industries' performance while implementing best practices that would enhance productivity and service quality. The optimization strategy included comprehensive analysis of current procedures and systematic redesign of operational workflows that would reduce costs while improving client satisfaction and employee effectiveness. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.